This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIK.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Rodosovich, George Stoy here from the Soonerscoop.com studios. A Tuesday, December 2nd, early National Signing Day coming up on Wednesday. We will talk to Brent Venables as well as General Manager Jim Nagy about the signing of the 2026 class, which these days, by about 10:30 in the morning, everything is in. Yeah. We'll get Josh McCuistion in here. Wanted to do a little bit of a preview of things to come, taking a look at maybe some possible prospects that are still out there to finish off the 2026 class, as well as looking at the 2026 class as a whole. They stand at 24 commits right now, number 15th nationally in the Rivals.com team rankings. George, how are we?
Great. Cannot complain. Busy week this week. Got the college football rankings tonight. We'll see where Oklahoma is, and then obviously big day tomorrow with signing day.
Any thoughts, concerns, criticisms on our friends south of the border in Austin who are going through it today?
It seems like they want to change the rules. They don't want to count losses anymore. The results no longer matter.
I stand with the people of Texas. I don't think that they should count. I understood that as a exhibition game.
If they want to take away the Ohio State loss, we'll go ahead and take away the loss down in Dallas.
That game counts. That game counts.
Oh, that game counted?
That game counts.
I didn't know. I don't know what counts and what doesn't.
If OU goes to Ann Arbor next year, that game does not count.
Right.
If they go up there and lose.
Yeah, for sure.
Precedents being set, and we thank the good people of the University of Texas. All right, we will get into today's program here, bringing Josh McCuistion in. But first, let us tell you about our good friends over at William & Lauren. As the official custom clothier of OU football, William & Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William & Lauren in Oklahoma City. You can do so also in Tulsa in the 918 or online at williamandlauren.com. williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as OU football. The great Django said that he was by William & Lauren just this morning. Bunch of people go by William.
We need to go head down there and get our custom jackets for the new studio.
We do. So we have the new studio, maybe Oklahoma playing in the playoffs, broadcasting from the new studio. Plenty of things to come here over the next month from Soonerscoop.com. Thank you to our fine friends over at William and Lauren. We will now bring in Josh McCuistion, whose big day is coming up tomorrow. I do want to ask him, though, if Josh, how are we? Is your shine taken away these days on National Signing Day, the early portion of National Signing Day? I know that we're pro early National Signing Day, get these guys in, get them on campus during the spring, all that kind of good stuff. But it seems like nowadays there's just not a whole lot of questions going into the morning that was National Signing Day when you had it back in February, and all the surprises would happen, whether it be, I think the Corey Nelson one still sticks out to me for Oklahoma.
Peyton Bowen?
Peyton Bowen, just a couple years ago with all the drama.
That was a crazy one, yeah.
Somehow forget about that when really that is like one of the better examples.
Yeah, I think you don't see as many of them as there used to be. The kid that signed, from Miami, and his mom walked out of the signing day announcement, and wouldn't sign the papers so he could go to Arkansas. There's all these stories like this where you're just like, man, those days were kind of great. At the same time, I think you really get to seize on some of those, like the Peyton Bowen thing. Like that was really the only thing for us to really track down that day. And so how that all played out over the next 24 hours after his original announcement, there is something that's different about it. But maybe, like, Eddie, let's talk about it in like 10 days when I'm not fresh off like 8 commitments in the matter of a week. I don't want to talk about how slow it's been. So, but I think your point is generally right that like the lead up to signing day and then a few spots through the summer and fall, 4th of July has become a big deal. Some of those moments, I think, have kind of taken the shine a little bit from NSD itself.
The Peyton Bowen situation obviously worked out for Oklahoma. He's making up a lot of plays, having a breakout season, I guess you could say, this season for Oklahoma. Certainly coming off of the fantastic game against LSU on Saturday. Landon Collins, definitely his mom, it wasn't National Signing Day, but that was the announcement. I don't know. That's one that always sticks out to me as well. I think we were watching that in San Antonio, right, Josh? Before Joe Mixon ended up signing with or committing to Oklahoma at the Army game. We'll be back down there in one of the fine cities in our country, San Antonio, Texas.
What about
here before too long.
Was David Hicks on signing day?
Was that
or is that just
might have been?
commitment?
I think that was just a commitment, wasn't it?
Yep, that was an announcement out of his school at Katy Paytow, or Payto. I always say it wrong every time.
You did get to the parking lot, though.
Got to the parking lot, was ready to do an OU announcement. It was like, oh, wait a second. This might not be going OU's way. But again, like that, and I know OU fans won't agree when it goes against them, but like, think about Peyton Bowen. That's what makes following recruiting fun. Like, it's not this kid grew up an OU fan and he goes to OU. I mean, that's cool. That's great. But there's not a lot of tension about that. But like when you watch OU chase somebody for 8, 9, 10 months as an OU fan, that's got to be exhilarating when you get that win. It's no different for me as a recruiting guy. Like when you kind of get to watch it really play out and a kid goes up to the podium and you don't know what he's going to say. I think those are exciting times.
Okay, Oklahoma, as you said, they've had a very active week on the recruiting trail, picked up 8 commitments here over basically the last 7 days. We went over every one of those guys in the recruiting report on Monday that you can see here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Today, we'll take a look at some of the names that maybe Oklahoma could hope to try to possibly get in the end coming up on Wednesday with the early National Signing Day period opening, as well as the rest of the 2026 class. Obviously, Bo Bentley, Jake Krull, a number of these guys that we'll get into here moving forward, as all of them are expected to sign on Wednesday. And as we said, we'll talk to Brent Venables and Jim Nagy on Wednesday here in Norman. Most of it will most likely be done. I think last year, Josh, weren't they done signing by like 9:45 in the morning?
It was unbelievable because, the signing day for me is like my kids. I've got somebody else is dealing with them going to school. Like I used to have all this time allotted. And now I get to like 10 a.m. and it's like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Like I feel like the job's kind of done. So signing day it's like this, it's just a flurry early in the morning. So, get up, get your coffee, get over to the Crimson Corner, do all that stuff. But like, be ready because it happens real fast because, for those that don't even realize, Oklahoma can start accepting letters of intent as early as 6 a.m. Eastern time. 7 a.m. Eastern time, 6 a.m. local in Norman. So there's a chance that before a lot of people are awake, Oklahoma will already have a couple of their letters of intent in Norman already. Before
we get going on some of the guys that maybe Oklahoma's still trying to flip or add to the class, Jared Curtis, is that a bigger deal than maybe people realize, or is it getting its right service, due, storyline, allotment, just in terms of sounds like Vanderbilt's going to flip the number 1 quarterback in the 2026 class, which is just kind of insane.
Now, I thought, did I miss it? I thought that had already, did that not already happen? Yeah, he's done it.
It's been announced, and then Jared Curtis came out on Tuesday afternoon and basically said, I don't know where this is coming from. I haven't talked to either side, but I think at the end of the day, all the motion is in place for him to end up flipping from Georgia to Vanderbilt.
Okay, everyone will have to forgive me. I've been writing most of the day Tuesday, so I had missed the follow-up from Jared Curtis. But I'm going to guess that most of the industry isn't wrong about this.
Sure.
And kind of like, because, guys like our guy Steve Wiltfong, I know Tom Loy at 24/7, some of these other, guys that are plugged in have had this happening for a little while. I think it's huge, guys. And I think when everybody talks about, I hate this era and the NIL and blah, 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 this is one of the great things that comes from it. Vanderbilt would have never in a million years had a chance with this kid 10 years ago. It would never have happened. I don't care if they did just go 10-2 and Diego Pavia might be a Heisman finalist. That would not change this. He's going to Georgia. He's going to, Tennessee or Alabama or one of the programs that all these elite 5-stars kind of go to, Oklahoma included. But when you have these opportunities and you have this situation where you can, hey, we're going to pay you this and we want you to come and start from day one and do those kind of things. I think you get this, and I think it makes college football as a whole better because instead of Georgia having, this kid sitting the bench for a year or two and then, okay, he's ready to go and Georgia just reloads and restocks and goes out and just keeps destroying people. they got to go figure out what they're going to go do now. I mean, like they're left hanging now. They've got to go figure out what it's going to be at quarterback. They've got to make some tough decisions. Guys, to connect it to Oklahoma, and we can pivot into that. Remember, Bo Bentley was one of their top quarterback targets. Now, I don't want to scare anybody. Bo Bentley's going to sign with Oklahoma on Wednesday. There's no connection at this point.
Sure.
But that's how these decisions, I tweeted all the time, that domino effect, because these things all end up connected at some level.
Incredible. It's incredible what Clark Lee's been able to kind of put together in Nashville with Vanderbilt. They've been, I don't know, maybe like kind of a modern day Bill Snyder a little bit. I know it's not where Kansas State was when Bill Snyder took over, but still kind of hard to process that Vanderbilt's in the middle of this thing. All right, let's get into Oklahoma and finishing out the 2026 class before we get into some of the guys that are signed. And we'll start with Noah Abibbe, a guy that you went and saw out of Friendswood, Texas, down at Friendswood High School down in Texas. I always want to say Houston. Is that right, Josh? Is that basically Houston, Friendswood?
Yeah, very much just a suburb. Like Friendswood's about 25 minutes south, dead south of Houston.
Okay, well, they're in Houston. I'm counting them in Houston for the rest of the time.
Perfectly fine.
Noah Abibbe, though, he is staying home. It's not going to be Oklahoma. He commits to Houston on Tuesday morning, the day before early National Signing Day, 6'3", 275. I guess on the surface, a little bit surprising. What happened with Noah Abibbe?
Yeah, this is one, guys, that I thought a week ago that I thought he was going to end up at Oklahoma. I didn't think there was a lot of question about it. He hadn't talked a lot about a lot of other programs. He had been committed to Tulane for a while, but I knew when John Summerall left for Florida, you kind of wondered, well, okay, he's got a relationship there, but does he really want to go all the way to Florida? Like, I just didn't know if that was going to be the right fit. Now, I didn't really dream that the distance between Norman and Houston was going to be a big problem. But that's what this sounds like. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I think U of H is clearly doing some things in the NIL game. I mean, they've got a big donor all their own in Tillman Fertitta that's helping them do plenty of work. And there's plenty of others as well, but he's kind of the ringleader that I know people know. But I think that's what this came down to, because Oklahoma did what they needed to do. They offered him, they pursued him, they made it clear what their vision was for him. And I know he had a lot of respect for the idea of playing for Bill Bedenbaugh. So it's a tough loss, guys, because I won't rewrite history. I like this guy. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he could be a very good center. And again, with Jonas Muya not making the trip in, the idea that I don't think Oklahoma is going to offer another 2026 offensive lineman here in the next 24 hours or anything. I think they're going to sign 2 in the 2026 class, and guys, that's not enough. It's just not. I don't know. Now I'm not saying that means everything's lost, but it forces your hand. Now you've got to go be more aggressive in the portal, and you've got to make some decisions there. And 2027, they've got 3 offensive line commitments, but now you got to get 6 or 7. You've got to make that a real number.
Josh, the light number in offensive linemen this year, is that a result of OU missing out on a couple guys like a Noah Abibbe, or is it felt like they never really had anybody that they just, I don't know, really fell in love with in this class at offensive line?
I would say, too, and just to kind of piggyback off that real quick, it probably is decently hard to recruit at a high level when you look up and Michael Fasusi, Ryan Foje, Eddie Pierre-Louis. You're basically recruiting to get depth, and hey, you can come in and battle with some of these guys, but for the most part, if everything were to go right, you would expect a bunch of these guys to be 2-3-year starters. Take a quick time out from the recruiting report to tell you about our good friends over at Tushy. Tushy is the everyday luxury bidet that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and bottom health for life. You're a testament to that, Mr. Stoya.
Yeah, I have great bottom health now. That Tushy
show us.
Yeah, we'll not be showing, but it is great. We've had it now in our house for over a month. It's been awesome. Super easy to install, as I always say on here, but we love Tushy.
Installation is simple, and it takes just 10 minutes to complete. Literally anyone can do it. Go to hellotushy.com/SuitorScoop, hellotushy.com/SuitorScoop. Remember, a-hole is only a naughty word if you wipe. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code SuitorScoop at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code SuitorScoop. Thank you to our good friends over at Tushy. Thank you. Bottom's clean. Also want to tell you about Lucy, 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free. Lucy breakers are also the nicotine pouches with an extra surprise, each pouch holding a capsule that can be broken open to release extra flavor and hydration. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set yourself up with a subscription today and have Lucy delivered straight to your door by going to lucy.co/SoonerScoop. Use the promo code SoonerScoop. Pick out your favorite flavor. Pick out your favorite milligram sizes. You got the 4, you got the 8, you got the 12. Your flavors: mint, mango, berry citrus, apple cider, apple ice, wintergreen, espresso. Plenty to choose from. So go to lucy.co/SoonerScoop and use promo code SoonerScoop to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Back to the recruiting report.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you, Eddie. That makes it tougher, but man, you'd think that makes it even tougher in the portal, wouldn't you? I mean,
Good point.
Guys who are more immediate, more pressing, like, hey, I don't know what we can tell you here, but good luck. We want you to come compete. But at the same time, I think there was, in 25, we talked a ton about how many great offensive linemen were in the region and guys we knew OU loved, from all the names. We won't run them all down, but obviously leading the way were Ryan Foje and Michael Fasusi. I mean, that's 2 huge wins for OU. But in 26, you never got that same feeling. Now, we know that, Jim Nagy has made, obviously not direct comments about a guy like Deacon Schmidt, but he's made some comments that were pretty clear to decipher who he was talking about, and they really like Deacon Schmidt a lot. I know I've said it before. Noah Best is he looks like a Ben Power starter set to me, like in just how big and physical he is. I really like what they got. I think it makes a lot of sense for them and what they want to be offensively. At the same time, guys, I'm a proponent. 4 needs to be your bare minimum every year. I'd rather it be 5, especially in this era where guys are going to leave, guys are going to portal out. And depending on what happens with that, with some of their reserves, some of the guys, a guy like Logan Howland, is he going to come back with, the potential of Ryan Foje and Michael Fasusi being the bookend tackles? I don't know. I mean, but it's a valid question. So then does your number even get higher than you thought it would be? So that there's a lot in play here. I mean, this wasn't a class where they had to hit a home run, but you definitely feel like they left a little on the table.
Josh, what happened with Jonas Muya, the 6'7", 280 offensive tackle, kind of due to the sport of football? We had talked about him on previous recruiting reports. He never made it down to Dormant over the weekend. Did you ever find out, was that Oklahoma backing off? Was that Jonas Muya maybe being more interested in other schools? What necessarily happened there?
My impression is, guys, that he went on the Zach Alley plan, really liked the dollars that West Virginia was throwing around. I think that's what's happened. I think it's as simple as that. And again, I think part of it, and it kind of ties into what George was just asking about, I think there was a clear effort from Oklahoma to find talent, but to find it at a very reasonable cost. Not, they didn't want to, they could have went and got some guys if they wanted to say, hey, we're going to go way over the budget on this or that. I think they were very mindful of a guy that's not going to start for us for a couple years. We don't want to pay him, starter salary, starters numbers like that. That was not what OU was working under. And I think that's probably what bit them here a little bit at the end. That's a kind of fine line to walk. Selling a kid on both, hey, we can't promise you playing time, and B, we're not going to pay you as well as this other school who probably can make some promises about playing time. So that's a tough deal. And again, you'll take the situation Oklahoma's in. You want the good young offensive lineman already on campus that you believe in. That's a good problem, but you still got to find a way to have depth and get through practices and all those things. So they'll have to make up their mind on some things. But I definitely think Jonas Muya was a decision from the player, just because I think he knew the situation in Oklahoma was going to be a little tougher for him. He was going to have to work through and kind of earn it a little bit more.
Are there guys that maybe don't sign in December that Oklahoma would round back to in the spring? Continuing evaluation, obviously going through some of the senior film. Are there guys like that out there that could be a realistic option, or are you full on go to the portal and you find and then try to even do better in 2027?
Well, I think that's absolutely possible. Like, you look at a guy that we've talked a little bit about, Cole Seaton, Markel Ford's teammate at Mesquite Horn. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to sign on Wednesday. That's my expectation. But I think you're starting to see, and I know you see it in the portal. Like, when there was the 2 portal windows, you saw guys getting smart and saying, I'm not going to worry about it in the winter one. I'm going to wait until the spring, and I'm going to be the only offensive tackle that started a P4 game that's in the portal, and my value is going to skyrocket. I'll be, it's a barren market. I'll go in there and really command some money. I'm wondering if high school kids start noticing that a little bit too. I tweeted one earlier today, a kid named Trey Sherrod from Edmond Santa Fe that's got some good G5 offers. I know some P4s have looked at him, including Oklahoma, has had interest in him at various points. I wonder a little bit if, and he told me that he's not going to sign on Wednesday. He's going to push it out till February. And I wonder if he is indicative of some other guys that are also going to do similar things and just say, I'm in no rush. I can wait and kind of see what the market looks like, because, again, I don't think there's going to be schools that won't take you because you didn't sign in December, because if you're not signing until February anyway, you weren't going to enroll and be on campus, and it doesn't really change the math that much. So, again, I think there's going to be a few guys that maybe try that avenue.
Malik Franklin was another name that we were going to discuss this morning. He commits to Alabama. Daphne, Alabama native. Is this more of a, you can put 2 and 2 together? It's going to be hard to pull this kid out of Alabama to begin with. And maybe Alabama, they get a little bit more serious with their pursuit of Malik Franklin at 6'6", 252.
Yeah, there's no question. This was Alabama kind of at the 20. I think it was a deal where and we see that. I mean, it's no different than dating, guys. Like the girl, like, oh yeah, I'm not that interested in her. As soon as she has another date, a guy suddenly is like, oh yeah, I actually want to make that phone call. We're gonna take her out. So I'm officially old now for recruiting. Comparing recruiting to dating. I've crossed that line. I'm pretty excited about that. But that, I think there's no question that they felt like he was about to pick Oklahoma. Very much my impression going into, like, I would say Monday afternoon. I still pretty much believe that was going to happen. And then Alabama really put a press on. And I know people will say, well, how could that happen in 24 hours? Think of it very similarly to like a Cooper Hackett in the state of Oklahoma. It's just where the kid wants to go. It's no different than Braden Allen with LSU. We were talking about that before we started, guys. Like, sometimes these kids, that's just where their dream is. Like that. It's not that they're not excited to go play at a different school, or if that's the opportunity they have. But if, some kid from, I don't know, Oolaga suddenly got an OU offer, it's going to be really hard for another school to pull him out of the state if that's what he always wanted to do. So I think that's all that OU faced here. There's nothing they did wrong. There was nothing wrong in their planning or their effort. Alabama decided kind of at the last minute, hey, we're going to take this guy, and that made it really hard to beat him.
So, Josh, is that a similar situation as offensive line where on the defensive line, I guess they won't be looking to add anybody here in the next 24 hours, or could they, do something later in the class?
Yeah, you'd wonder if, kind of like we were just talking about, if there was somebody that kind of hung around, maybe somebody that is just still out there on the market. And that's hard to know, because you'll have guys that'll tell me now, like, oh, I'm going to sign, and then it comes to Friday, and they're like, well, I got a few phone calls, and some schools are trying to line up some NIL stuff for me, and then they end up not signing until February. So I wouldn't say that Oklahoma's closing that door. I don't think there's any question. I mean, they've lost. I would say as of Monday morning, I thought they were going to sign 4 defensive linemen. With the 3 that had long been committed or were long committed, and then Malik Franklin. Well, Teron Richardson decommits, has now flipped his commitment to Virginia Tech. Malik Franklin's going to Alabama, so Oklahoma's back at 2. I don't think there's any question they'd like to add more, but at the same time, guys, I can pretty easily see the argument for, kind of just waiting and saying, this group probably needs portal help more than it needs high school help right now. So, hey, this is a little more, we can splash on a really good, number 3 defensive tackle behind David Stone and Jaden Jackson, or however you kind of want to look at the numbers.
By the way, I do want to say congratulations to Tiffany and McCuistion that you've closed down your dating scene. That's good news in the McCuistion household.
Yeah, we need to clip this. We need to make sure she sees it. I know she worries a lot. A handsome guy like myself, that's always it's a real risk.
I'm sure. All right, one more name to get through here in 2026 of importance to Oklahoma, and it's a name that we've talked about here. It seems like for the last couple of months, just check-ins here and there. Davion Gross, Lone Star Frisco High School, or Frisco Lone Star High School, same high school as Ryder Mix, who's in the 2026 class, tight end. Murmurs around his situation with Florida and John Summerall taking over. Is there a chance that maybe Oklahoma could see a surprise at wide receiver come Wednesday afternoon?
Guys, you see me glancing to my right. I'm looking at the clock. Like, this is the kind of thing that I could give like a 12-minute answer on. Like, Davion Gross is that chaotic to follow. He does when you do talk to him, he doesn't say much. He's very, very savvy. Like, he's not going to give you anything that you can read too much into, especially to feed any ideas that he's looking around. At the same time, there has been several little pieces of concrete information over the last 48 hours where you're like, that's not a guy that's acting like he's fully solid with Florida. Now, I'm not telling you he's going to flip. What I just said is absolutely accurate. Davion Gross is probably the only person that knows what Davion Gross is going to do. Like, he really is one of the more interesting guys to follow because he'll do one thing and say another. He'll say one thing and he'll do something different. Like, you just don't exactly ever know where he's standing. And I can never tell if that's intended or if that's just a high school guy being a high school guy and kind of, his feelings change from one moment to the next. But guys, dating back to before his commitment, I kept being told, like, he's going to Oklahoma. He's going to Oklahoma. Like, this is going to happen. I mean, and that's not from OU sources. That's from people around Frisco, around that, Lone Stars program. I just kind of thought, well, okay, like, Oklahoma's in great shape. And then really, I mean, you guys remember, it was the last, not even 24 hours. It was the last 12 hours right before his announcement when everything went sideways. You're starting to hear some of that same kind of stuff. So I don't know what to make of it because it's one of those things where I wouldn't say I got burned on it, but it definitely, I didn't come out right on that situation. But you're hearing similar stuff again, like, hey, something might be happening here. But I will say what's different is you're also hearing it from Florida sources. Florida is clearly concerned about where he is and what he's going to do. And, our guy Blake Alderman, who does a great job at our Florida site, he put up, kind of an update that was just basically, if I was picking, I'm not sure I'd pick him to end up in Florida's class right now. And I think that's probably a good sign that things actually are happening. This guy isn't, it's not he's having trouble telling OU no. It's, maybe he's not picking up the phone as regularly for Florida as he was, or whatever the case may be. There are indicators that something's kind of cooking.
Josh, how big of a win would that be if Oklahoma could flip him? Would he, be their best wide receiver in this class or considered in that group, I guess?
I like Braden Allen. I went down, I watched him live. I thought, but if you told me a week ago they could flip Braden Allen for Davion Gross, I'll take it every time. Davion Gross is a really kind of one of those, and I've said it a lot, but I mean, this is a guy that played running back early in his career at Lone Star. He kind of runs like that, guys. He's real physical. He's strong in his lower body. He's going to run through arm tackles. He's not your typical wide receiver, but he's super dangerous after the catch. He's got real speed. And, obviously Lone Star has been pretty good to Oklahoma. For those that don't realize, this is, the home school of Marvin Mims, his alma mater. So I think there is a lot to take account of there. And I think this would be a huge flip for Oklahoma. One of the bigger signing day flips I could remember. I mean, like that, and again, they don't happen as often as they used to. You don't have the signing day drama we used to see all the time, but there are plenty of good ones, and this would be a really big win at the finish line for Oklahoma if they could find a way to pull it off.
What would a signing day be without a little drama from the wide receiver department? It seems like every year perennially. There's somebody out there that's doing something at the wide receiver position. Okay, let's get into the 2026 Oklahoma class. As it stands now on Tuesday afternoon, they have 24 guys that are set to sign on Wednesday morning on the beginning of the early portion of National Signing Day here in December. Just in terms of the 2026 class as a whole, 24 guys right now, Josh. Let's go over the strengths just in terms of what they are about to sign, what they're going to have on campus, maybe here shortly. I mean, you flip the calendar over and all of a sudden these guys are on campus for the most part. Kind of like the strength right now, what would you point to? Is there one area, one position that you would point to? Obviously winning battles, whether it be Jake Krull or Bo Bentley, Jonathan Hatton here as of late. What would you say is the strength of this 2026 Oklahoma class?
Well, I would say I think it's pretty well balanced. Like, there's a couple positions I like. There's not one position where like offensive line last year or 2 years ago with David Stone and that whole crew. Like, there's not that obvious, no doubt, this is where the strength lies kind of thing. But I think it's a well-balanced class. And what I will say is the thing that I find impressive is that while we've watched Oklahoma struggle offensively this year, their offensive class is pretty strong, guys. Like, I mean, I like what they've done. They've got a bona fide number one back in Jonathan Hatton. They've got the quarterback they wanted in Bo Bentley, a top 100 guy in the country. At receiver, I don't know that I see the pure superstar, but again, maybe that's Davian Gross. But at the same time, with or without Davian Gross, they've got pieces that make a lot of sense. Jaden Pettit and all his size and how big he is. Jasir Rogers just being an absolute field-stretching, kind of an Isaiah Satania type of player in the way you watch him and the way he just has a big play kind of waiting at any point. Offensive line, like I said, a little soft, not in the number or in the numbers. I really like the players. You just wish there was a couple more of them. Even at tight end, guys, that we know has been a problem for Oklahoma. I like Tyler Ruxer a lot. He's a really complete tight end. He's the kind of guy that we haven't seen OU really have in a while. Maybe since, and again, this isn't to say he's going to be this caliber, but maybe since like a Mark Andrews, and that he is a guy that could go catch 45 passes in a year and still be a functional blocker in the run game. I think he really has that kind of flexibility. Ryder Mix is a nasty, better receiver than he gets credit for, but is a very good blocker. You could use him in some H-back stuff. He can be moved around and put in a lot of roles. But I know this is a super long answer for what should have been a simple question. I would say, though, you're talking about quarterback to me, and then on the defensive side of the ball, I really like what they've done at defensive end. Obviously, Jake Krull's a huge win. But I think Daniel Norman and Matthew Nelson are a lot more talented than people realize. Really long, explosive pass rushers, a lot of skill, playing. Probably both going to take home state titles this year. Matthew Nelson in Arkansas at Bryant, they're undefeated, playing for a state title this weekend. Daniel Norman at St. Thomas Aquinas, we don't need to say a lot more. They're just a monster every year in Florida. And then at linebacker, guys, I love Jacob Curry, Bo Jandro. There maybe not be the names that everybody knows. It's not like a Jake Krull at defensive end that kind of has that guy that everybody says, oh, it's a top 100 guy in the country or whatever. But I really like what they did at linebacker, and I think they got a bunch of very active playmakers.
Josh, who is maybe one guy in this class that we could look up at this time next year, and they're playing a very important role on this football team? We look right now, and you have Michael Fasusi, Ryan Foje, Torrey Blaylock, all true freshmen, even Elijah Thomas
Cortland
on special
Guillory.
teams. Cortland Guillory. I forget he's even a true freshman. He's been that good. But who's maybe even give me one or two guys, Josh, that you could see next year playing an important role?
I think with what we know about the defense, we know there's going to be a lot returning there. I think it would be unfair to if you told me Jake Krull had like a role where he's getting 10 or 12 snaps a game and he's kind of a pass rushing specialist, okay, I could buy that. But as far as like a real impact, real consistently, day in, day out, I think you'd look at three positions on offense. I think you'd look at Jonathan Hatton at running back and maybe even DeZephan Walker. I know people kind of think of him as the other back. He's a good player, guys, and really great feet, really decisive when he runs. So I would lean to Jonathan Hatton, but I would probably just simplify it and say one of those running backs, because we know the need they have. They need more bodies. They need a guy to step up. And I think Jonathan Hatton's going to walk in and probably be the most physically gifted running back they have on campus. Maybe they find a way to make that work. Receiver, Jaden Pettit, just because he has something that nobody on that roster has with his size, his physicality. I could see him being, a red zone guy, a guy that's going to work across the middle for Oklahoma and do some different things. Like I see a role for him pretty early on and being able to use his size and speed. And then, like I said, the guy I just mentioned, Tyler Ruxer, they've got to have help at tight end, guys. I mean, we've watched them want to run 12 personnel a ton this year. I have no doubt they're going to go get somebody in the portal that they think can start as a high-quality SEC-level player. But if you're wanting to run 12, or even as we saw on 4th and 1 last weekend against LSU, some 13 personnel, you need more than one tight end, and maybe Tyler Ruxer could be one of those guys.
Is there anybody in this class, Josh, that is going to sign with Oklahoma, obviously, going into Wednesday, that you go, I don't know what everybody else is missing here. I think this guy is way underranked, way under-recruited, and is going to end up being a star once he gets into the program through development, all that kind of good stuff?
The guy I would probably lean to is Jacob Curry. I love the way he plays, guys. And there's something to be said. And I am a big, stats will tell you lies. You can't always trust that because you don't know who they're playing or what it looks like. But every time I go look at this guy's numbers, he's got 11 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He's forced a fumble. He is, you look at those havoc plays. That's what he's doing all the time. And he reminds me so much of Kip Lewis, and that he's a little bit undersized. He's about 6 foot, probably 205. And so he's not your, 6'2", 225-pound high school linebacker, but the guy is everywhere. And then as you watch him, his frame fills out and he gets bigger, he gets stronger. I just think he's a guy that in a couple years people are going to be kind of like they did with Kip. Not that Kip wasn't highly recruited, and not that Jacob isn't well regarded as well, but just kind of this guy's better than we realized.
Josh, what about, I want to ask you about Bo Bentley, because I feel like we've just talked about him because he's been in the class now for a while. How big of a win did that end up really being for Oklahoma, getting him the job he's done? I'm sure helping recruit some of these guys to this class, but also just what would this class look like if they didn't get Bo Bentley? I feel like this class, you wouldn't feel nearly as good about it.
Oh, I don't think there's any question, George, because, you look, guys, of the 4 wide receivers they currently have committed, 3 committed since Bo Bentley was a part of the class. So, that's not an accident. So, and I know, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago on the recruiting report talking about Jaden Pettit, talking about having frequent conversations with Bo Bentley and Bo being very involved in that. And I think, to his credit, Bo was one of those guys that walked a really good line where, you get a lot of guys that are, I'm going to go recruit everybody and I'm going to get everybody, and they just wear the other guys out. Like it's too much. They don't know when they're, okay, that's enough force. Let's just let the kid kind of work his way through his own decision. And I thought Bo was very good about that. You never heard a guy like, oh my gosh, I hear from Bo all the time. It's just like, he's a cool dude. He's real, he's real chill. He's easy to talk to, that kind of stuff. And I think that helped OU in several cases in this class. Now, I'm not saying anybody picked OU because of Bo Bentley or anything like that, but I do think they kind of like the way, like his makeup, like what he's about. And I think anybody that's talked to Bo, they get where he's coming from. He's just he's an easy guy to talk to. He's very low key. And at the same time, you look at it, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's an Elite 11 guy. So he comes in, he doesn't have to tout his credentials. He doesn't have to tell you how good he is. He's got all the skins on the wall to kind of say, hey, this is what I'm about.
Oklahoma's had a lot of success with brothers, obviously. The Bowen brothers right now currently on campus. With the Jandro brothers, Nico and Bo, I feel like they've been a little bit undersold. Not undersold, I think that's probably the wrong way to say it. Maybe just underrated, just in terms of coming from a great program in Chaparral and in the Phoenix area, if you will. Just guys that kind of, I like the idea of recruiting, and we've talked about this before, Josh, of recruiting guys from great programs. They usually know the expectations that come with playing at a place like Oklahoma. How do you foresee the Jandro brothers fitting into Oklahoma next year?
Well, Eddie, I want to protect us because they are at Chandler Hamilton. And
Damn it, I knew that
we've seen those guys. We don't want to piss them off. We're going to let them be.
My apologies to Chandler, the school. What was it? Chandler what?
Hamilton.
Hamilton
High School.
I'll never forget that. I promise.
But there's no question that I think Nico committed so early, and it was kind of out of the blue. I think everybody thought OU led, but I don't think everybody kind of thought it was going to happen on the timeline. It did. So I think that kind of everybody got excited, and then it was like, well, why isn't his brother committed? Like, the story just kind of turned instead of like, well, Nico's a really good player and he's very active, and I think he is a. We talked a lot about Markel Ford as a Cheetah. I think Nico makes a lot of sense in that role too. Kind of reminds me in some ways of Malik Hawkins. So I think that could be that'll be interesting to kind of watch the Cheetah position play out over the next few years. But with Bo, I've said it before. Missed so much of his senior year. He didn't play until his last two games here, and for those that missed it in the future Sooner story. Hamilton actually got knocked out by their rival here over the weekend. So their season's done. So Bo only got to play in 2 games this year. But I think in those 2 games, if I remember the stats right, he had like 32 tackles, like 7 for loss, a couple of sacks. He recovered a fumble. He wasted no time making a huge impact for Hamilton in that defense. So, and again, I'll say it again, and it's a quote I've used a lot just because – I had a coach, a buddy of mine that just kind of called me out of the blue, and it was, they weren't going to get Bo or Nico, and they just called me, and he was like, Bo is one of the 5 best linebackers I've seen in the country. Like, there are several schools that are really high on him, and I know people will look at the rankings and kind of make decisions, but remember, when it ultimately came down to it, Bo Jandro is basically deciding between USC, who's going to probably end up with the number 1 class in the country, Texas, who we all know is going to recruit very, very well, and Oklahoma. That should tell you a lot about how the coaching ranks kind of valued him and his ability.
Josh, my last question for you here is, I'm sure we're wrapping this up here in a second, but just what did you think of the job that the front office did with this class? This is kind of the first year that we've seen it, and really it's only been a few months of them doing this because, Jim Nagy was hired, I think, in March. And obviously he didn't hire his full staff until this past summer. We saw some of them out at the summer camps and everything like that. Just what do you think of the job that they did working hand in hand with the coaching staff and what that could mean going forward? Because we see I think we're starting to see the fruits of their labor in the 27 class. But can you talk about how they were able to kind of, not last minute, but kind of piece together this 26 class over the last couple months?
Yeah, there's no question. And George, I think you're right in that in 2027, you can both see Oklahoma getting an early start on some of these guys, and at the same time, also the staff and the front office guys learning, kind of what they need, how they need to help each other, how they can work best together, how again, we've talked before about how good the front office staff has been as recruiters, which was not really something we knew they were going to do. We weren't really expecting that as much. So I think that's been really interesting to follow. But like in 26, there are multiple examples. I mean, Oklahoma, Tyler Ruxer's in this class because of Jim Nagy. Let's not make any mistake about that. He identified the kid. They as a staff went over it. I don't want to, be like, oh, he just made this decision. Everybody worked through it. But this is a guy that they identified early. He's a height, weight, speed guy. He was very productive this year for Heritage Hills, helped them get to the state semifinals up in Indiana. So I think that's a good example. Another one is Jasir Rogers, guys. That wasn't – when everybody looked at that Penn State class, he wasn't the name that everybody was like, well, yeah, Oklahoma's going to go after that kid from Delaware. From a high school that we will never, ever again ask Eddie to have to say because that is a monster for anyone. But they knew. They're like, we like this kid. I mean, the second OU got involved, I heard from 2 different people around Penn State that were like, this was the guy. This was the guy Penn State thought was a big secret, and they really had him They were super excited about him. So again, for OU to kind of come in, make that move, he doesn't take any future visits. He was supposed to go visit Nebraska, Alabama. He was going to go see several schools. OU shut the whole thing down because they were in there early. They made him a priority, and it paid off for them. The last one I would mention as a good example, and it's kind of circuitous, is Messiah Mickens, who was in that Penn State class and was one of those guys everybody said, well, go after him. And again, I said it over and over again, OU really liked Messiah Mickens. But I think as it got down to kind of brass tacks with Messiah Mickens and they were closing in on that commitment and he was going to come in for an official visit and, kind of take the final steps, I think it got to a point where the front office staff and, maybe even DeMarco Murray is sitting down and saying, well, okay, we could get Messiah Mickens, but with what we're looking at here, financially, we could go have another conversation with Jonathan Hatton. And I think it was just that ability to pivot so quickly because it went from they're getting Messiah Mickens to Messiah Mickens. Wait, Jonathan Hatton's committed. It all just happened in the matter of 48, 72 hours. And I think that is where, like I said earlier, in 2027, you're going to see more of that, where Oklahoma's front office staff and coaching staff really is starting to blend together and figure out how to work in the best way.
Apapo Quiminik, Bear, Delaware. I'll never pronounce that correctly, but that was my best attempt. Okay. Next,
that was good.
20 hours or so. Keep an eye on the Crimson Corner. Keep an eye on SoonerScoop.com. Good time to join SoonerScoop.com. We'll have a full breakdown of the entire signing class coming up on Wednesday, as Oklahoma is expected to sign 24 names to the 2026 signing class. And then we move on 2027, where they're already off to a great start with the number 2 class in the country. And it seems like they've been adding guys by the day over the last week there in 2027. So for Josh and George, I'm Eddie. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.